friends, and welcome back to First Chapter Friday. For this month, my choice is book 1 of the Sinister Summer. It is called Wretched Waterpark, and it's by Kiersten White. A couple months back, I actually read an adult book by Kiersten White. It was her first adult book, and it was really good. Very spooky. So, when I saw this, I was very, very excited. So, this is the page before the first chapter. Fog drifted around their feet, clinging greedily like it wanted to pull them into a watery grave. And maybe, this being the worst summer ever, it would actually end that way. To save Will, Theo whispered. To save our friends, Alexander whispered. To save... Well, let's just do those two things and worry about the rest if we survive. Theo was always practical that way. Her brother nodded. They clutched each other's hands and took a deep breath. Then they jumped into the pool, glowing green and hungry beneath them. Their dark hair floated behind them as they sank slowly to the bottom, took a few steps, and then disappeared. Chapter 1. Their aunt was decidedly sinister, but only because she was from their mother's side of the family. If she had been from her father's side of the family, she would have been decidedly Winterbottom. It had been a great trial for each of the Sinister-Winterbottom children to learn how to write their own names, something their usually thoughtful parents had neglected to think through. Another thing their parents had neglected to think through was the wisdom of dropping off 16-year-old Wilhelmina Sinister-Winterbottom, who had actually learned how to write her own name as a toddler, 12-year-old Theodora Sinister-Winterbottom, who had never to this day written out her whole name, preferring Theo, and also 12-year-old Alexander Sinister-Winterbottom, who had always insisted on each and every letter of his entire name and would not answer to Alex even if he were hanging off the side of the cliff and a search party was frankly shouting it, to spend the summer with their aunt Sophronia Sinister, whom the children had never met and who, by all appearances, had never encountered an actual human child before. That was quite sad. Will had been adopted as a baby. Theo and Alexander had joined the family 4 years later, born hand in hand. Sometimes still, when they weren't paying attention or they were nervous or scared, they reached for each other's hands. They weren't reaching for each other's hands now, though, because they weren't nervous or scared, just confused. Their noses, with matching freckles dotted across quick-to-sunburn white skin, wrinkled in unison. "Do you remember getting here?" Alexander whispered. "What?" Theo answered, shifting closer to him. Her short, spiky brown hair was pushed back from her forehead with a headband. Alexander's was neatly combed and gelled into place. "How did we get here? The kitchen?" "No, this house in... Where are we? What town is this, Aunt Sophronia?" But Aunt Sophronia spoke as though she didn't hear Alexander's question. "I wonder about your parents' judgment, summoning me. I am not well suited to..." Aunt Sophronia gestured vaguely in their direction. "And I wonder if you will be suited to the grave tasks ahead." Still, they had no other options. "So you're taking care of us, the whole summer?" Theo scowled. Aunt Sophronia merely nodded. "How often would you say you need to eat? If I set out some food in the morning, will that be enough?" "Depends on how much food you set out," Will answered, not bothering to look up from where she tapped furiously on the screen of her phone. Her fingers moved so fast sometimes they blurred. Her phone's name was Rodrigo, and it was her third favorite member of the family. She always refused to say who was the first and second place, though leaving Alexander vaguely worried that he came in after the phone. Theo was confident she was first and would not have believed it if anyone had told her otherwise. "It also depends on what kind of food you set out," added Alexander, who was very particular about food safety protocols. Images of sweating cartons of milk going sour made him feel as though he was breaking out in a cold sweat along with milk. "Definitely not enough," said Theo. "We need to eat at least as often as you do." Aunt Sophronia pursed her colorless lips. This statement seemed to puzzle her even more than trying to calculate how to feed 3 children. "Yes, as often as I eat." Theo tromped past her and opened the fridge. It was empty. Apparently, the food in question was theoretical, and theoretical food was Theo's least favorite type. She even preferred beets over theoretical food, and all beets tasted like dirt. Alexander was distracted from the theoretical food by a non-theoretical kitchen. It looked as if it had been transported directly from an old TV show. The floor was black and white tile, the walls were a warm marigold color, and the cabinets and counters white like an old-fashioned fridge. Had he not still been vaguely queasy just thinking about spoiled milk, he would have appreciated how well the kitchen matched his aunt. Aunt Sophronia looked a bit like she had been transported from another era as well. Her dress trailed on the floor, hiding her feet. Her hair was long and straight, nearly black, and her skin was so pale it blended in with the stark white cabinets. Her large eyes, which Alexander was fairly certain had not blinked once during their conversation, remained fixed on a point somewhere behind them. I could buy some food? She suggested. Alexander did not understand why it was a question and not a statement. Or you could order it, Will said, scowling at Rodrigo. If Aunt Sophronia never blinked, Will never looked up from the shiny screen. How? On your phone. Aunt Sophronia looked at an old sculpture affixed to one wall. She picked up part of the sculpture and held it gingerly to her ear. It was puzzling. A phone? Why was it on the wall? Why did it have a curly cord like a leash keeping it in one place? Was it going to run away if they set it loose? Hello? Aunt Sophronia whispered. Is anyone there? Do you have food? Will finally looked up. I mean on your cell phone? Using the internet? She shook Rodrigo meaningfully. Her fingernails were bright blue, her skin was dark brown, and her face held an expression Theo and Alexander both knew she meant she was about to lose it. Their parents would have gently redirected her to the piano to slam a harangue on the keys, but their parents weren't here, and neither was their piano, and neither was anything from home because their parents had decided to ruin the entire summer. Why? The kids had been roused from their beds in the middle of the night with urgency. Urgency and candles. A lot of candles. Why had their parents been lighting so many candles? Then they were here. Alexander couldn't quite fill the blanks. Had they taken a car? An airplane? A train? Why couldn't he remember? But he remembered the worry behind his parents' eyes as they tried to smile and promise the summer would be great. He couldn't shake that worry, like it had jumped from them to him, like it was connected to him with the same tangled, curling leash that kept the phone on the wall. He didn't think the summer would be great. In the absence of piano, Theo stepped in. She wasn't worried. She was annoyed. She had big plans for the summer, and now they were all on hold. Do you have a cell phone? She asked, wanting to study the antique phone she had thought was merely decorative. The whole thing was absurd, but kind of funny, and she wondered how it worked. Or a computer? What's the Wi-Fi password? I can't find a signal. Will's finger tightened around Rodrigo. Waterpark, Aunt Sophronia said, a smile like a skull grimace on her face. I'm taking you children to the water park. It's the first task to be accomplished. We have to accomplish a water park? Alexander asked. What does task even mean? Isn't that like an assignment? Theo chimed in. Do you mean activity? And besides, Aunt Sophronia said, ignoring their questions once again, children like water. And parks. Does the water park have Wi-Fi? Will asked, through gritted teeth. Does the water park have food? Theo asked. Does the water park have strict food safety protocols and an A rating from the local health department? Alexander asked. None of them asked if the water park was plagued with a series of mysterious disappearances, which would soon be much more important to them than Wi-Fi or lunch, but in Alexander's case, would still rank slightly below food safety protocols. So that was a little bit of a longer chapter, but I feel like it really establishes all of the characters that you're going to see. So obviously things are not right with Aunt Sophronia, to say the least. And we have 3 very different types of kids that are going to deal with the task of going to the Wretched Waterpark. So if you'd like to see or finish reading this book or anything similar, please give us a call and we'd be happy to set it aside, or you can just come see us at the children's desk. Happy Friday!